Good day all, RobotnikHolmes here. Hexbot, what the heck are you even doing? Your job is to man the camera. Jeez. Anyway, you. Yes, you. Are you tired of seeing the quality of the comics go down the drain? Would you rather see them be about the actual characters instead of focusing on Sally's mentor? Or some random group of fricking animals? Well, fear not. The MVP of this era is happy to help. Writer Angelo Di Giussari, a dude you might recall being the one who wrote issue number 23's stories. That one honestly turned out to be one of my faves. He really knows his stuff, this guy. So believe me when I say that we're in good hands in this one. These next two issues in the Sonic lineup are going to be about important characters from the Sat AM cartoon. And not just that, but actually putting in the effort to flesh them out. Unlike previous issues, where the focus is usually on other weirder things, with the characters mostly just interacting with their surroundings instead. To be more specific, in issues number 23 and 30, we're going to see a lot more of Sally Acorn, leading member of the Not All Freedom Fighters and arguably the most competent, depending on the story, and Uncle Chuck, Sonic's biological uncle who found himself on the receiving end of being turned into a metal guy when Robotnik took over. Golly, these stories are really shaping up to be something nice. Sally's never been turned into a robot before in any media until now. Not counting that nightmare sequence in the cartoon, where Dr. Robotnik also made her lose all her hair for some reason. Worst hairdresser ever. The comic's done a mildly decent job in making Sally the main focus at times, but good old Uncle Chuck... I don't think I've seen them since that short cameo in issue 16. Well, Sonic and Co were really determined to rescue him, weren't they? I guess with this issue we finally get some payoff after all that build-up. But let's not take my premature assumption for granted. I should probably get to analysing these two. So buckle up, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between. Today I'm going to take a look at issues number 29 and 30. Dear God, they really want to show the big selling point for the whole issue, huh? Yeah, I don't know if you guys are aware, but spoiler alert, Sally gets freaking roboticized in this issue. Sound the alarm! The leader of the Freedom Fighters has now joined Dr. Robotnik's side. Nah, I digress. I'm sure it's not all that bad. I do really like Spaz's artwork here. He always does such a good job at designing characters with sharp edges, and has a keen eye for detail. Wait, hold on, who's that? Is that Dulcie? Oh, okay, I guess she first appeared in this issue. Wow, I'll have to make an introduction for her too. She was a series regular during the cartoon's second season. Her character was the basic ditz, with the ability to breathe fire, but other than that she didn't stand out as much, despite being the hero's main mode of transportation. Funny how the first page of this issue explains her entire backstory. I don't appreciate it butting in like that, but they had to fit her in the comic eventually. Alright, I guess it's time to get into this. First story, Steel-Belted Sally, has Sonic and Dulcie trying to mosey away from one of the bad guys' hovercrafts. Oh god, first page and we already got 2 puns in the first sodding speech bubble. Just let me contain my total lack of surprise. That hovercraft seems to fly less well than a dragon, so it finds itself crashing into a cliff. And when Sonic goes on board, he finds a random device just laying on the ground. We then cut to Robotropolis, with Dr. Robotnik giving us the old... Apparently, that device Sonic found is a de-roboticizer, which for a guy who took over the planet by turning everyone into robots, it's kind of a big deal. I don't know why the villain would even leave one of those on his floating hovercraft, but wait, he also left his supply of super shine head polish in there. He can't let Sonic know that he's got no hair. Quick, blow it up! Blow the thing to smithereens! So Sonic makes it out of the self-destructing vehicle with the de-roboticizer in his hand, and he decides to bring it to his friends and see what they can do with it. Figures, they're completely stumped, but Rota's analysis shows that it can be used one more time before its batteries are depleted. Sally comes in with a few ideas, suggesting they use it to make Bunny unroboticized and turn back to normal, but then she also suggests that they turn one of them into a robot. Antoine certainly thinks it's a bad idea, but this allows Sally to come up with a cunning plan. She always was one of the best strategic figures, and she proves it when they go out to formulate said plan. Rota even gives her a chip he invented, so that she can regain her free will after she's roboticized. Man, all this just to sabotage his main base of operations. So, Sally Acorn is captured while her friends watch, as was intended, and she is promptly placed within the roboticizer, as was intended, and Snively finds her free will chip and discovers the whole plot in a matter of hours, as was intended. Wait, no, Snively, you absolute cretin! Bloody hell, okay. It would seem that Sally Acorn has truly been turned to the dark side. This would certainly spell bad for our heroes, who probably don't suspect a sodding thing. Speaking of which, the other freedom fighters are sneaking into Robotnik's absurdly spacious underground sewers. I guess Robotropolis and Knothole have more in common than I thought. And the Blue Blur goes ahead and does his whole distracting swapbots thing, assuming that Sally's mission was a success. And look, it's not all that bad. Bunny and Antoine are both okay. And look, even Sally's here, so everything's gonna be just peachy. Oh crap. Sonic, I wouldn't head back there if I were you. You might find yourself caught in a trap too. Well, bugger. Roboticized Sally has him right where she wants him, fricking holding the freedom fighters at gunpoint. Man, you guys didn't put up much of a fight, did you? The jig seems to be up, and with Sally's free will chip fricking crushed, Snively demands a ransom, the payment being one de-roboticizing device. Sonic acts all snarky at Robotnik instead of answering Snively's question, and for a split second the two seem to be on the same page, but in the end it's all for naught. The other freedom fighters are herded to the roboticizer, with no hope in sight. Except for the convenient arrival of Dulcie, who just happens to be flying above Robotropolis because she was so worried about the others. She soon spots the freedom fighters on the brink of being brainwashed and finally being defeated by the bad guy. Jesus Christ, this is probably the closest Dr. Robotnik has come to a complete victory. All the good guys are freaking trapped and trying to break free for their lives. Well, except maybe Rota over there. I think he's lost it, and he knows what's coming to him. Alright, let's finish up this main story. Roboticized Sally is commanded by Snively to be the one to turn her friends into robots, but thankfully, Dulcie is in the close vicinity and is ready to put a stop to this mess. She is a dragon after all, may as well put all that power to good use. Dulcie breaks in, the de-roboticizer stowed away in her pouch, and she interrupts the dramatic scene with the sheer amount of ruckus she causes. However, Sally is still going to press that button, even when Sonic tries to reach out to his friend and tell her not to listen to the villain's commands. That de-roboticizer might come in handy right now, Dulcie. You want to maybe stop this from happening? Yeah, thank you. Sally finally returns to her normal Mobian self and regains her free will. But in a rare moment of alarming competency, Robotnik pushes her out of the way, intending to roboticize the heroes himself. But not if Dulcie has anything to say about it. And so, with Dr. Robotnik and Snively running with their tails between their legs, the freedom fighters are finally free while Dulcie does her mean dragon business. The main story ends with them thanking Dulcie for her awesome contributions to the team, and while Sally was unsuccessful in her sabotaging mission, at the very least they came out in one piece. And then proceed to make more puns. Yeah, that was to be expected. You can take the Sonic out of the puns, but you can't take the puns out of the Sonic comic. Story 2! Growing Pains Part 2. Oh yeah, it's the story where Tails finds his true love in the form of Fiona, but it turns out she was a trap and also a robot. So, last time we saw our two-tailed kid, he was screaming his butt off inside the roboticizer in the island. And it seems like he's freaking done for, like, he's dead-zo. But in truth, it's actually quite the opposite outcome, as the bars freaking blow off, and Tails is shown to be quite fine actually. He was able to clog the machine with his twin tails and get out of there easily. Tails, my boy, you should be freaking tailless after what happened to you. What, do you just have tails of steel? Following Tails being proven to be A-okay, we get the robotic Fiona ready to beat the crap out of him. And of course, Tails does not have it in him to fight back, not even with a tail whip. He just gets out of the way of Fiona's club and avoids obstacles for the next few pages. Yeah, I'm not lying, there's literal pages of that. It all comes to a point where Fiona's got Tails in the water, and she repeatedly tries to drown his soggy ass face in the ocean, like literal waterlogging him. I don't see how this exposure to the water is weakening you, Tails. You can still breathe above water, can't you? But wait, Fiona stops trying to kill him all of a sudden. Is it because she finally returns Tails' feelings? Does she realise that love is above being evil? Actually, no. She's totally rusted to the point where she can't move anymore. Oh no! Now who will Tails hopelessly fall in love with? Boo hoo hoo, we're done here. While Dr. Robotnik scarpers out of there like a bugger, Tails uncovers some important information. Yeah, it was just here on this artificial beach. And it reveals that the big bad has operations on the other side of Mobius. Dr. Robotnik, you need to stop leaving things in places really inconvenient to you. And so, the issue ends with Tails aspiring to handle the mission on his own. Damned if the Freedom Fighters can help. He's going to prove just how good a member of the team he is. And yeah, he just goes and swims off, leaving the rusted Fiona Fox replica on the mechanical island. And that's about it. It hints at a Tails miniseries coming up, but we'll get to that eventually. Well, let me get to the good points of this issue first, because I found there was actually more good than bad this time. Steel-Belted Sally was definitely one of the darkest stories thus far, more conceptually than how it was executed. Keep in mind that this is still the era where comedy was the #1 focus, regardless of its detriment to the comic itself. I must give props to Digisari. The writing may have included many a corny joke, but honestly, I did get a kick out of all the little subtle jokes, particularly in the dialogue. Special mention goes to Robotnik talking about owning head polish, the Swapbot's robotic dialogue being injected with sometimes questionable lines, and just about everything Snively said. I really liked him in this issue. While it's pretty typical of the writers forgetting that the Freedom Fighters are the main characters and should thus be given at least a little bit of focus, you do get to see their individual personality traits. Antoine was cowardly as all get out, Tails was the dope who is still just a kid in training, and Sonic's as snarky and self-aware as always. Also Sally! Couldn't possibly forget about her. I'll admit, I was expecting a darker side to the whole using the leader to beat up the other Freedom Fighters plot. But what we saw of her in this issue was neat. Plus I kind of liked her roboticized form in this, even if it was still drawn in typical cartoony style. The only two characters I felt were lacking, at least when compared to all the others that were just brimming of personality, were Bunny and Dr. Robotnik. The latter, ironically, was shown to be less of a villain than his conniving henchman this time around. It doesn't usually go this way. The big guy usually has enough menace to stay as top dog, and he always won up Snively in the end, but here, his villainousness was a tad wasted. Bunny Rabot, dear god, it's like they forgot she was super strong. Like, in that Mecha-Sally scene, she freaking should have broken out of her chains. You want me to believe that those meager steel links were going to hold that metal arm of hers? But yeah, other than that, I rather liked the first story. The dialogue in the second story was kind of really awful. Just about every word spoken by the cast was some joke about love, how love hurts, and just generally depressing topics. Like, seriously now, I think the writer must have been going through a few things during the publication of this issue. It's only fitting that Growing Pains ended as corny and drab as it had begun. At least we saw more of Tails being a moody boy. Gallagher continues to surprise me in just how much he fleshes out his character. But it's a shame that the character of Fiona, or rather the robotic copy of the character, kind of just stopped existing and will forever non-exist, except as a statue on the island. She probably could have been a good character if they didn't kill her off. So, general consensus is that the stories were half good, but also could have been better. Because of that, I'm going to give the story and characters a score of 3. Now, when did the art for the cover story. Like I said earlier, I liked the way he drew Robot Sally here. Everyone else is fine. Dulcie was drawn okay in her first canonical appearance in the comic. The action was rather nice and... damn it, I hate to be repeating myself, but both artists, Mawini and Manic, did a fine enough job, maybe on the same level as the last issue. Overall, I'd say the visuals were average, but a good average, so it gets a 3 as well. Final score for Archie Sonic number 29 gets a 6 out of 10. Not bad, I guess. Still not great though. I was really rooting for the comic to finally get to that dark, serious, but still comedic edge. But, well, maybe the next issue will have those elements that I expect as a SatAM fan. Well, no use beating around the bush. Let's get to analyse issue number 30. Oh, this cover is actually pretty nice to look at. It's got the Hedgehog himself, solid snaking his way around Dr. Robotnik's colourful-ass city. He's also about to be detected by the roboticized Uncle Chuck and Mutsky, the latter of which doesn't actually appear in this issue, by the way. Yeah, other than that, it's a good cover. I like Chuck's shoes, though. Those are some fine-ass shoes. It's like he's wearing Sonic's rings. Alright, Return of Uncle Chuck begins not with an intense rescue mission, but rather an imagined spot starring the dude. Jesus, I'm glad this is only a daydream, because, you know. So, Sonic really misses his uncle, and we get a few pages explaining that, as well as a catch-up for the readers who might have missed the previous issues, or the pilot for the cartoon. The rescue of Uncle Chuck and his chili dog stand are kind of what drives Sonic to fight Robotnik, like, more than anything else. Sally's certainly supportive of the Hedgehog, and he wonders if Uncle Chuck is doing okay out there. Hopefully the dude is not being used in one of Dr. Robotnik's plots to plan the Freedom Fighters' destruction. Oh yeah, he definitely is. It would seem that Robotnik and Snively both have repaired the trans-dimensional transporter, which keen-eyed fans might recall is what they used to see away Sally's dad, the king. Before they go about doing it, the villain also has a row with his henchmen. I guess to remind us that Snively secretly hates working for his boss, and that Dr. Robotnik is a bloody idiot. And just to prove my point, when things start to falter, the dude takes it into his own hands and, let's just say that things don't exactly go well for him. Yep, Robotnik ended up in the void instead of Uncle Chuck, and now his stupid ass head is nothing more than a loud voice on a TV screen. Serves him right, really. However, in a surprising twist, it would appear that Snively has finally had enough crap from his superior, and he uses this opportunity to keep Robotnik in the void, while he himself leads his forces to go and take on the Hedgehog. He even calls his boss the same insult that Sonic uses, so you know he's definitely resentful of him. But wait, remember Uncle Chuck? Well, Robotnik accidentally getting sucked into the void actually had an unintentional side effect, somehow. And now Sonic's uncle has regained his senses, alongside his free will and all that other crap. Meanwhile, Sonic the Mood Bag is out moping in the remains of the chili dog stand in the city, when suddenly, oh, hello there. This is indeed the return of Uncle Chuck. So, with the return of the local hot dog maker, the Freedom Fighters have a small chili dog break in Knothole. However, Uncle Chuck also relays them important information, it being that Snively has been able to usurp Robotnik, and is now planning on using the transporter for more malevolent reasons. A handy scan via Nicole shows the Freedom Fighters what little chance Snively has at conquering Mobius, and the results show that a simulated takeover would most likely end in the complete destruction of the planet. From this guy? Huh. I mean, it makes sense. He's probably more competent than the main villain, but still, truly? Understandably, this causes more than enough panic amongst the group, half of that being channeled through Antoine, but fear not, because Uncle Chuck has an idea to mole his way back into Robotropolis and act as a spy for the Freedom Fighters. There we go, there's the Uncle Chuck we know and love. Meanwhile, Snively is cosplaying as his boss. I wasn't even aware they came in his size. Shopping for him must be a freaking nightmare. He'd just be like, hello, yes, do you have any clothes that come in -1? So, the henchman turned main antagonist decides not to capture or cast away the Freedom Fighters into the void, but rather use the transporter's power to strip away parts of Mobius's terrain, and also the Freedom Fighters too. I guess he's not afraid of the big risks in destroying the entire planet's ecosystem. Thankfully, Uncle Chuck is there to be a secret good guy and take Snively's plans. Gotta let the good guys know of this. Well, they do catch wind of what's going on, and Sonic is tasked with running in and stopping all the SWAT bots from finishing construction on a bot plane. That's literally what it's called there. It would seem a pretty easy task for a super fast Hedgehog to accomplish, but alas, he's a dum-dum because he falls right into a trap and ends up in the void too. Yup, Snively's got him right where he wants him, and he's also attached the transporter to the front of his silly little plane. Jesus Christ, they're really playing up Snively's ruthlessness here. Remember when he went without a boss and he just kind of threw a tantrum like a little bitch? Well, here he's obliterating part of the Great Forest and turning it into a barren wasteland. Thank God his efforts are interrupted when a flying hovercraft comes in and tries to shoot at him. Do a barrel roll, Uncle Chuck. He's doing the best he can, really, but Snively's apparently too good of a pilot to have his thrusters blown off. But we can't have Uncle Chuck take all the spotlight. Sonic, while still in the void, decides to do what he does best, eats chili dogs like a freaking maniac, and apparently that's enough to distract Snively and have his plane shot down. Well, his thrusters anyway, now he can't even move. That doesn't stop him from taking drastic measures, however, as he plans on blowing up the plane and the transporter, sending everything within a 100-mile radius to be taken to the void. Of course, Snively will be safe from it, he planned ahead for that one too. But he wasn't the only one who planned ahead. Uncle Chuck had apparently used his time to free Dr. Robotnik from the void and send him landing right onto Snively. Ironic that Robotnik was the only thing to stop a truly cataclysmic event from happening. And so, the cover story ends with Robotnik and Snively in a classic scuffle, where the henchman gets his comeuppance, and the freedom fighters all celebrate Uncle Chuck being back. And of course, more chili dogs are made. That much is made apparent. Story 2. Who keeps stealing my Chaos Emeralds? What in the... Who wrote this? Paul Castaglia, huh? Okay, he's new. So this story revolves around Dr. Robotnik trying to find the culprit for someone stealing his Chaos Emeralds. Yeah, he apparently keeps a lot of them on his secret island base. It doesn't make a lick of sense in canon, but whatever, I'll roll with it. What proceeds is the Badnik Coconuts trying to lay traps for the culprit, only to end up being on the receiving end of them, a la Wile E. Coyote. Cue pages of him being blown up repeatedly. He fails so much at his job that Dr. Robotnik has him fed into the scrap machine for his efforts. Womp womp. We do get to see the culprit in the end though, and it's revealed to have been Bunny, who just wanted the emeralds to wear at the charity dance that night. What? Did you grind up the Chaos Emeralds into little bits of jewellery just so you can wear them on your fingers? Well, that was dumb. There's another thing after this, but I'll cover that in the extra bits section. Well, about time this important character got some focus. Uncle Chuck had only been given passing mentions and cameo appearances until now. Of course, not counting the miniseries. But as much as I enjoyed his fatherly presence amid the young freedom fighter group, I feel there could have been a little more of that. You know, this whole rescue Uncle Chuck business has been set up for quite a while. And it was definitely beginning to go that route, with Sonic making it his personal mission to rescue his flesh and blood relative. But here, we saw that Chuck had to be saved because he's an endless chili dog dispenser. I don't know, man. In the show, Sonic took this much more seriously, which I think the comic should have taken a few notes from. I mean, come here, take a quick look at this scene from the cartoon.
It's me, Sonic, your fave nephew. Please remember.
Sonic? Is that you, Sonny?
Uncle Chuck. Yes. Man, I sure missed you.
I missed you too. Still good looking and always cooking, eh, Sonny boy?
Yeah, there was none of that in the comic. There's no actual reunion between the two. They just instantly go working together and having Chuck be their spy. I think what I'm trying to say is that it fit into place too straightforwardly, and it was lacking the emotional core that the cartoon had. But honestly, I think that was due to Snively and Robotnik getting more focus. The cover story was essentially all about them. Come to think of it, Snively taking command of his forces while Dr. Robotnik is temporarily out of the picture, wasn't that in the cartoon too? Oh yeah, it had the same plot as that Satayem episode, No Brainer. That's the second time the comics adapted the basics of this episode. Only here, instead of wearing a miniature version of Dr. Robotnik's suit, he just wore an imposing looking helmet. But back to the cover story. As much as I liked seeing the freedom fighters tackle a threat more dangerous than the main villain, the way they handled it and its characters wasn't too good story-wise. The other story was mediocre at best, just some slapstick that ended in a dumb joke. It had been written by Paul Castaglia, who I actually failed to give an introduction to, but I do know he worked on previous Archie titles. Obviously I can't judge him solely on this one Sonic story, but I will say that he's a level below Gallagher in terms of making stories with puns absolutely everywhere. So yeah, as much as I appreciate the plot and the tonal similarities to the cartoon, this read was still mildly disappointing. Still though, I'll give the story and characters a 2. The art done by Mawini was neat as always, nothing worth pointing out, or really criticising here. This was a rather colourful looking issue. I guess the void and the hero's antics were a prime contribution. There was also a lot of big letters in the text, for some reason. It's not a problem per se, It just took me by surprise that everyone just started shouting entire words all of a sudden, at surprising frequency. My previous criticism of Mawini always giving characters the exact same facial expressions in every page is gone here, because the dude has finally stepped out and given us some kind of funny, kind of odd, and kind of goofy expressions. Yeah, they tend to be odd, but otherwise I commend him for going out of his comfort zone. You're no longer a storyboard artist, so you gotta step up your art game, my dude. The other story was done by Spaz, and golly do I wish he and Mawini switched places in this issue. His art is always so good and nicely detailed. It's just a bloody shame that it was used on this little slapstick story of little worth. Nonetheless, I always enjoy seeing Spaz's stuff, and he and Mawini both continue to do a good job in the art department, so I'm gonna give it a score of 3. Oh yeah, I got a few pointers, but first off, let's take a look at this teaser for the Knuckles Chaotic special. The thing sure did try to hype itself up, but admittedly due to my own stupidity, I've covered this single issue special already. And I can tell you that more characters does not mean better stories, despite what this advertisement is trying to tell you. But I'll leave that to your own personal opinions. The other thing I wanted to discuss was Uncle Chuck, because on that thought, isn't it funny how he looks almost exactly like Metal Sonic? I know, it's an incredibly silly and probably fruitless comparison. Robots having evil red eyes had been done to death. But if you look at the dates, the cartoon actually aired just a few days before the Japanese release of Sonic CD. I find that so funny. Branches of the East and West both came up with the same kind of idea for an evil-looking hedgehog robot with roughly the same colour scheme. Am I crazy? I'm probably crazy. Come on, let's just move on to the final score. So, for Archie Sonic number 30, the final score is a 5 out of 10. Not quite as good as the last one, but I admit that's mainly due to comparisons to the cartoon. But, like, it's inevitable, isn't it? You can't just make an adaptation and not expect someone to compare it to its source material. And, yeah, that's those 2 issues analysed. I suppose next time we're going to have to look at the Tales miniseries. You know, the one they hinted at existing at the end of Growing Pains. You have my thanks for watching, and... What are you staring at, dude? Oh, nothing. Tell me if I'm wrong, but you sound like you're just not into these comics. Well, of course I'm into it. I suppose I'm just wishing it would be more like the cartoon, as any fan would. Give it time, lesser me. You've got a long way to go until that shit. Hey, in preparation, you want to have a drink at Flair's or something? Why not? Hexbot, do something productive for me until I get back, please. Finish up the review and try not to be lazy like always. Care to tell me why you even have that rust bucket around? You know, he still proves useful, unlike Omochow, who's got
Herm! I swear, if you're doing this, Holmes, frankly, I'm going to hand you
New mission. Eliminate Holmes.
Hello, it's me, the voice at the end of the video. Yeah, I don't always do this, but I'm going to give a major shout out to one of my friends who also does art and stuff. Kello draws a lot. Yeah, they're rather neat. They have an Instagram, which I'm going to link in the description as well. But yeah, go and check them out, and I'll see you in the next video. Sally finally returns to her Mormon?